Gotta start again. All right. Take two. All right. So, welcome to Keeping the Beat. My name is Joshua Simonds, and I am the Executive Director of the Percussive Arts Society. I really just did a great intro, and none of you heard it. So, I'll do it again. But I want to thank TNMEA and the CMA Foundation for putting this really great new series together. You can catch a lot of great artists, administrators online every Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Central here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about pursuing a career in arts management, not technology, obviously. And I do want to say that I'm thankful that my colleague, Amber Fox, is here in the background. Say hi, Amber.
Hello.
She's going to be monitoring some of the comments to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. I really want tonight to be a conversation. I want to really answer as many questions that you may have for those that are really interested in potentially pursuing this really great profession in arts management. So please engage. Please ask questions. I'm going to get to as many as I can. But I was asked to kind of start talking about probably the most, the number one question I get from people is, well, how did you end up as the executive director of Percussive Arts Society? And obviously, that is a 20-plus year journey to end up where I am today. So I thought I'd kind of take you a little through my story. Hopefully, you might be able to see yourself maybe in the beginning, where you're at right now, where I was at, and then what's possible for you down the road. I will say that I regret nothing. I love this profession that we're in. We're going through a tough time right now. Everyone's going through a tough time right now. I don't care what business you're in, the nonprofit arts, for-profit, restaurants, you name it. Everyone's going through a tough time. And so I'm going to really try tonight to think of this not during this time. Because we will come back from this. We will rebound from this. We've done it again and again and again. We did it in 08, 09. We did it in around September 11th. We continued to face these challenges, and the arts organizations are usually the ones that usually come out of this. And we come out stronger because there's really something that we as humans need. We need art. We need that outlet. And whether you are a performer, whether you are an administrator, whether you're a student, it doesn't matter. An educator, we need the arts. And hopefully some of you will kind of follow this, because we need great art administrators. So I'm going to answer the question. How did I end up as the executive director of Percussive Arts Society? So let's start back in college. I was a percussion major. Like many of you, I was whether you're studying music or theater, dance, you name it, with that ambition to be an educator or a performer, because really those were the two options you had. You can either be a high school band director, that was everyone said, you'll be a band director, or maybe you'll go audition for an orchestra. And that didn't sit well with me. I thought, there's a lot more that I could do. So a little about myself, and maybe you'll relate to this. First, to show up at rehearsals, always making sure the parts got out, make sure that everything was set up, everything was put away. Was I the best percussionist? No. Was I a good percussionist? Yes. But I enjoyed making sure, hey, what could I do to make sure that we were going to be successful? So that kept, kind of going. I was a lot, did everything else, recitals and lessons and you name it. But I really wanted to do something more. And so I really believe that there's a lot you can learn outside the classroom. So in my third year, I decided, hey, I'm going to move to England and study abroad for a year. And I'm going to see what life is like over there. that kind of began my journey of thinking at that moment outside the box. Today, I really don't believe in the box. I don't think there is a box. I think there's just thinking. Just, even a box is going to be too narrow. But I wanted to really kind of get a better sense of what was out there. And when I came home, I had talked to a few people, and I said, you know what, I'm going to call up the local symphony, the Long Beach Symphony, and I'm going to see if they needed an intern. So I called the Long Beach Symphony, just random call, and said, hey, my name is Joshua Simonds. I'm getting a degree at Long Beach State. I was wondering if you need an intern. They're like, yeah, that'd be great. Come on in. So fast forward a week or so, went into the office, met with a lot of people. My first mentor, a great professional, development professional, Lisa Beery, who, kind of brought me around and said, if you want to be here, we would love a development intern. I said, great. They said, do you have any questions? I said, I do. I said, what's development? And that really kind of was my starting to just diving in and really understanding all these different parts, because we knew about the orchestra on stage. We knew about the music, and I knew about the timpani parts, but that just doesn't happen. What does it take to actually put on those concerts? What does it take to put on this organization? And so that was really my first dive in. It was an internship with the Long Beach Symphony. It started in development and moved to operations. And they really they took me under their wing. They said, here, read as much as you can, learn as much as you can from this. And then from there, I got to meet the conductor, Joanne Folletta, who is still a mentor to me to this day, who really pushed me and said, hey, we need great administrators in this world. And I then went to my teachers, the late, great Dr. Michael Carney, as well as Rainer Carroll from the LA Phil. And I told both of them, I said, hey, I really love percussion, but I'm starting to really love this other thing. And they both were so supportive of me. But they also said, that's fine, but you have to be a great musician too. You have to understand the art. You don't have to play it, but you have to really understand it. And so having that backing was really great, because I could still learn my instrument, but I was starting to also understand that there was this other thing. Now remember, going back, no one said I should call the Long Beach Symphony. I had to do that. So you have to do that. That's the first thing. You're at an age right now, and I'm just going to assume right now I'm talking to people who are probably in late high school into maybe master's degree. You have to do things on your own. No one's going to do it for you. So I would encourage the first tip is I'm going to encourage you guys to reach out to something that you are passionate about to find more about that organization. Maybe it's jazz. Maybe it's opera. Maybe it's dance. Maybe it's orchestra. Reach out and talk to somebody there. How did they get into where they're at? What are they doing right now? So that's really the first, that was the first thing that you had to do. Be proactive. Because in this career, you have to be. You can't just sit behind the desk. You have to be proactive. You have to go out and do things. And that's really a really good first step. So after that, I finished my degree in percussion. I said, I think I could do better if I went and got a master's degree in arts management. We'll come back to that later, because the question I get is, should I get a master's degree in arts management? And the answer is definitely maybe. It may be the right thing for you. It may not be the right thing for you. And we'll definitely come back to that. But I went to American University in Washington, D.C. And I was really glad I went to Washington, D.C. because in Washington, D.C., in addition to having for-profit, nonprofit, we also had government organizations. Obviously, the Smithsonian's, the Kennedy Center. We're not going to talk about that right now. And lots of other organizations there to really learn about everything involved. And we had museums and opera companies and theaters, and we had large and small. So it was really an opportunity to really get to see all the different areas of arts management. And that's something I would also think about if you are thinking about doing a grad school, make sure there's enough opportunity for you in that area that you go. When I went to grad school, there were only a few arts management programs in the country. I know there's really a lot today, so there's many more options in terms of the cities you'll go to and then what kind of access you might have to leaders, industry leaders, art forums, and a number of other things that are important. So just something else to think about. The other part of grad school, so I moved to Washington, D.C. in August of 2001. And then 5 weeks later, 9/11 happened. And I really didn't really know the arts community before 9/11. I've only ever known it post 9/11. I was working actually at the National Symphony doing an internship when 9/11 happened. And was there while we scrambled to put together the Concert for America. And I know what it looked like on the stage, but if you can imagine all the parts that went on in the background, the librarians who had to pull all the music and get everything ready, the stagehands, the personnel managers, the box office and ticketing people. What we saw on TV was a great produced concert, but that wouldn't have happened had it not been for the arts managers who dedicate themselves to that every day. And just like a musician had to get up on stage and learn music quickly, everyone else had a part to do prior to that. So that was a real great understanding for me, is seeing all these things work together. And then when we saw the concert, we saw that, hey, because of the work that we did, look at what was able to happen. That is, for me, probably the most special part of being an arts manager, is seeing that final product and saying, hey, it's not about the applause that we're getting. It's not about the kudos. We need to be silent. But we know if it wasn't for what we were doing, the other thing wouldn't be able to happen. It's usually some of my favorite, my favorite moments of PASIC, which is the convention that PAS puts on, is really the very end, when I see that concert on stage and can just smile and say, hey, we did a great job. I think that there's many arts managers like me who sit in the back and just kind of smile. And we know that we've done a good job. We know that the team has done a good job. Because if the musicians, if the dancers, if the actors are successful, then we know that we were successful too. All right, so any questions yet? Maybe pause and ask. Anyone have a question so far? Keep going. All right, so finished grad school, and now it was time to get a job. So how do we get a job? All right, so I knew right away that I wanted to work in the orchestra world. It was something that I had really believed in. I wanted to do it, but I also always really loved education. My parents are educators. I always thought I'd be a band director. That was what I thought I needed to and should do. And so a job opened up at the Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra in operations, which really means, the artistic side of things in terms of the music and the auditions, anything that's programmatic, essentially, at a youth orchestra. I will take questions later if you have questions about the things I did there, but I had a love affair with that orchestra from 2003 until essentially 2016. I took a year off in 2012 after a number of interviews and other jobs that I either got turned down for, and some that I even got, but decided, hey, COISO was the place for me to be. In 2012, I was offered the executive director job at the DC Youth Orchestra, and I was the general manager for many, many years at COISO. And then about half of my time into being the executive director in the DC Youth Orchestra, I got a call that my former boss was leaving COISO, and they asked me if I'd come back to be the executive director of CYSO in Chicago. So 1 year to the day that we left Chicago, we moved back to Chicago, and for the next 3 years, finished kind of what I thought was some unfinished business that I had in Chicago. And we did a lot of really great things there. My bio has a lot of it, and I'm very proud of the work that the whole team did there. Growing the amount of orchestras that we had and some of the really cool artistic collaborations that we had there. So that was 2013, 14, 15, and 16. And then in 2016, a friend called me and said, hey, did you see that the executive director job at the Percussive Art Society is open? And I said, no, I didn't. I'm not really looking for a job. I really love my job. And he's like, well, you should really think about it. And I said, yeah, but it's PAS. I've been working in an orchestra for a long time. I haven't really been involved. PAS, drums, really, I haven't played in a long time. He's like, just send your stuff in. So I sent my stuff in, and one of the amazing people who actually has helped put this series together, Julie Hill from UT Martin, was the president at the time, and we really hit it off really great, and I really believed in the mission of PAS and what it meant, what it stood for, and it really brought me back to my first love of percussion. So I'm so fortunate to be able to, when I started at Long Beach State back in 1996, and now we're in 2020, and I've been able to take that degree in percussion, and now today I lead the Percussive Art Society, which is the leading organization in the world for percussion education, performance, and research. So that's just a little bit of my background and how I went from point one all the way to where I am today. So I wanted to. So that's my background. Any questions about anything I've done there? I'm going to get to next. I'm going to get to some tips and tricks navigating this world of arts management. So
we'd like to ask the audience listening, who were the role models that inspired you to play music?
We're asking the
audience right
We're asking
now.
the audience.
Yeah.
All right.
So send in your answers to that question.
All right. Did you hear that? Send in the answers. Who were some of your role models
that
inspired you to play? We want to know about that. All right. So next on my thing is jobs in arts management. All right. There are artistic jobs. There are operation jobs. There are marketing jobs. There are development jobs, finance, technology, education and community relations and engagement, stage management. That's just a handful of the many, many jobs that you can do on the administrative management side of a nonprofit arts organization. Where can I work? All right, you can work in a music organization, not just an orchestra. You can do orchestras. You can do jazz orchestras. You can do opera. There's theater. Underneath theater, there's probably about 10 different types of theater: Broadway, off-Broadway, classical theater, chamber opera. There's dance organization, large or small. There's museums, foundations, presenting organizations, service organizations. And then within each one of those, going back to the first thing, types of arts management jobs are all the things that I listed above. Artistic operations, marketing, development, you name it. There are thousands and thousands of jobs available to people who are passionate about, I would say, the mission of the organization, and someone who really, and who's smart, who really wants to dedicate themselves to this field.
We have one question. They would like to know, what's the difference between the executive director and the president's role at PAS?
At PAS. All right, so these are titles. Titles are just titles. At PAS, the president is technically the head of the board of directors. The board of directors is a volunteer group of people who technically the executive director reports to. So they oversee essentially the governance of the organization. All nonprofit organizations have boards of directors. All profit organizations have boards of directors. In a nonprofit organization, our board does not get paid. In a for-profit, they get paid, right? And this goes back to the difference between a nonprofit organization and a for-profit organization. In a nonprofit organization, any profit, and yes, profit, a nonprofit can make a profit. Any profit that a nonprofit makes goes back into the organization. In a profit organization, it gets sent out to its shareholders or the owner or however that structure is set up. So at PAS, the president is the person, the individual who holds that job for 2 years, who is the head of the board of directors, and I report to the board of directors. As executive director, I oversee the staff and the day-to-day runnings of the Percussive Arts Society. The board of directors kind of works with me to oversee the vision, oversee the governance, the long-term sustainability of the organization. Now, in some nonprofits, the executive director, so my position could be called executive director, president, CEO. And what we call the president, who's the head of the board, would be called the chairman of the board. So you'd have the chair of the board, and then my title, it could be executive director, president, and CEO. They're really the same. Some organizations, the difference between an executive director and a president would be currently I do not have a vote on the board of directors. I sit on the board, I sit on the EC, but I'm not a voting member. Some executive directors who have the title of president might have a vote on the board of directors. So those are all within the bylaws of an organization. Bylaws, you can get bylaws of nonprofits to read through them and understand. That's the one thing that we kind of go back to and say, are we doing our due diligence? Are we following the rules of the organization that have been set up for us? So there's the question about the difference between the president and the executive director.
We have one more question. Where can you look for job postings for arts management?
All right. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to come back to where you can look for jobs, right? I want the job right now. So I'm going to tell you a few places, but you're going to have to stay on this. So here are some tips that I put together about arts management. Things that have been passed down to me, things that I've just kind of learned over the years that I've jotted down. I'm going to hit you with the very start with something that might be hard for you to think about, but I think we should just talk about it. So this job that I'm in, Amber's in right over there, thousands of my colleagues around the country, this isn't a filler job for us. We're not waiting to get our position in the orchestra or go to Broadway. We've dedicated ourselves to this profession, just like an educator has dedicated themselves to education. And a performer dedicates themselves to performance. Arts management isn't a filler job. It's a career. Now, there's an exception to that. You have a part-time job, maybe it's doing something for the organization and you're doing something else. Maybe you're in school, maybe you're just out of school, you're trying to make it, there's some part-time work, hourly job stuff, no problem. You don't have to dedicate yourself to that. But if you decide, hey, I want a full-time job, I'm going to dedicate myself to this profession, that's what you're doing. And the hard question you need to ask yourself is, am I ready to do that? Am I potentially ready to give up the thing that I have been studying for maybe 15 years, 16 years? Maybe you started playing the violin or the cello at the age of 4 or 5. Are you ready to say, I want to do something else? I was. I had a hard conversation with myself and then with my parents at that time, who were great sounding boards. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I'm ready to be the person to go from gig A to gig B to this orchestra to then go teach some lessons. I wasn't cut out for that. That wasn't me. And if I really didn't believe that, someone else would. And someone would be great at it. And there are thousands of people who are great at that. And I am thankful that there are those people. The same way I hope that they are thankful that there are people like me in the world, and all my colleagues, who do what we do. So it's a hard thing to ask, to say, hey, or to tell yourself, have that conversation, say, is this, the thing that I've been studying that I'm supposed to do? We have these, people tell us, well, we're supposed to go and audition for things. We're supposed to go and perform we're supposed to go become an educator and teach. But not necessarily. There are so many other jobs where your degree is critical and worthy. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a degree in percussion. Also, the arts management degree, which was later. But my percussion degree helped me get this. And your degree in music or theater or dance or anything else you're doing right now will help you with a specific job if you decide to go there. So you have value. Your degree has value, even if you don't end up in those main two degrees that they have. Am I going to get a degree in performance or education? Now, I know there's more jobs out there. There's more college degrees out there now, whether it's composition or technology, music business, whatever. But on a whole, you talk to so many people, are you a performance major, education major? That's fine. You can be one of those, but your degree has value in the world of arts management. And then from there are a lot of other aspects to the job that, or to your education that you should do. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. So you need to have that conversation. You need to be able to ask yourself, am I really ready to commit myself to this, at least for a little bit? Because it can't be, I don't know if I want to do it, or maybe I do, maybe I don't. Then if you're not 100% sure, wait. If you really have a passion to teach, or really have a passion to perform, then try it, do it. Don't think that you have to, well, there's probably more stability and I want to do, no. Follow your dreams first. Follow your passion. If your passion really is, hey, I really want to help, I really want to do something else, maybe this is the right thing for you. We have another question.
We do. So, what's your best advice for someone who wants to volunteer and get involved but feels shut out? What do you recommend those young leaders do to be taken seriously?
Okay. Next. It's a great question. So I'm going to help you try to become a little more professional in how you approach this. So the first thing is make sure you get a proper email address. I know it sounds funny. A few years ago, someone emailed me with the email address Fatty McButterpants. I'm a high school student. I'm not going to say at where, but needless to say, they needed a new email address. So proper email address. Who am I? Whose name is popping up in my inbox? Ask for informational interviews. I would really say that people really are flattered when you say, hey, would you mind, I would love just to talk to you for 30 minutes. Don't invite them out to coffee. Don't invite them out somewhere and say, hey, would you have a phone interview? Just so I can ask you some questions. And then be prepared for that interview. Ask them specific things that you want to know about. Don't scrutinize it or try to say, well, I heard this in the news. No, ask about their job. Ask them these kind of questions I'm talking to you about right now. Ask them about their background, how they got to where they're at, any tips that they might have. I think that those are the ways that you could go about doing that. Email. All right, I know a lot of people don't like email anymore, but it's still the primary form of communication. Okay, don't ask them to be on LinkedIn, or don't send them a Facebook friend request or follow them on Instagram first. Wait, okay, send them a proper email. Then but social media isn't the format to be able to be taken seriously with people you don't know. The other thing is, when you're typing your email, remember that how you type your text messages and how you type your emails are two very different things. Okay, even I will write my friends, my family members, with very poor grammar and without checking stuff and just kind of shoot things off. Right? That's very personal. You're getting things off. If you are wanting to be taken seriously, then you need to approach it seriously. You need to come up with and respect their time. The same thing that you would do if you were asking a teacher back in the day if you could have a lesson to see if you wanted to study with them. You weren't expected, hey, I'm going to be in your campus on Thursday and I want a lesson. The teacher was probably going to be like, whoa, well, that's not the way it works. The same thing with an executive director or someone else on staff. They're busy, they have meetings, so hi, I'm wondering if sometime in the next few weeks you might have an opportunity for a 30-minute phone call. I'm really interested in this profession, and be specific. Give them a time. Give them some even give them some options. If it'd be great if Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever it may be. It might be easy for them to look at the calendar and be like, oh yeah, next Thursday at 2, I'm free, right? Do the legwork for them, essentially, so it's very easy for them to say yes, I'm free, and I'm going to email you my assistant if they have one. Some of us don't, and we'll just get right back to you. But that's probably a really good way of doing that.
You talked earlier about deciding to be in the arts management as a degree, but somebody asked, or as a career choice, but somebody asked, what are ways to get involved in arts management while pursuing another career?
While pursuing another career. Wow. Well, I mean, that kind of goes back to the first thing I said in terms of, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a part-time job while you're pursuing something else, then, there are lots of jobs out there, ushers and box office people and things that, you might need help so you kind of feel connected to the art form. But if you're pursuing another career field, then you may not, there may not be as many opportunities, because when we hire people, we hire them with the idea that we're going to bring them in, we're going to train them, we want them to be part of the team. But if it's hard for us to say, well, we're going to put a lot of those resources into somebody who then is just going to leave us when something better comes along. So that would be a question that I would kind of put back onto you and say, if you really want to do something else, are you putting 100% of your time into that to make sure it happens? And I can definitely speak to you more about that. I can get your name from Amber and talk to you more about if there's something else specific about that you want to talk about. So I talked about those emails, calling, being specific, to the question about, how can we be taken seriously? Give them a little background about yourself, what your interests are, because you never know. Jobs open up all the time. So even though it's not an interview, it really always is. I remember a lot of people who asked me I've hired people who've asked me for informational interviews, because when it came down to it, I was like, you know what, that person I spoke to would be really great for this job, and they were mature, they wanted to be part of it, they understood, and I called them back up and be like, hey, you should apply for this. I still make them apply, but in the end, I was like, I know that person's going to be great. So you never know when a job opportunity is going to arise for you. Another thing to remember about arts management is, and this is something takes a little time to get used to, and that is, we are the managers. We are behind the scenes, and if you can't be behind the scenes, you really want to think about it. We're not the rock star. We're not the famous actor, musician. We're not the composer, the director, but we are part of the team. And those people, they rely on us, right? They trust us. You're not friends with them. And that's a hard thing sometimes to remember. You're close to these people, whatever, but we work together. And that's really a hard part about it, because you are around a lot of amazing people who you look up to. I remember the first time I was sitting in this office and I got a call from Steve Smith. And for the drummers out there, you're going to know who Steve Smith is, right? Amazing jazz performer, also has played with Band Journey for many years, on and off, but just an amazing percussionist, amazing drummer. And had to take a moment to be like, all right, Steve Smith is on the phone, but he wanted to talk about PAS. He was going to be performing at PASIC the following year, right? And at that moment, he was calling me because I had a job to do, and he had a job to do, and that's just the way it is, right? We weren't buddies at the time. None of that at the time, but but you are around these people, and they count on us, right? And we count on them. But if you don't get in the job thinking, hey, I'm going to, all of a sudden have a new lavish lifestyle, I'm going to invite to all these places, it doesn't happen. We have a job to do, we have a role to play, and but for many of us, that is the satisfaction for us, right? That is just as great as coming off the stage and performing at the highest level. Because if all of that goes right, if there's no flaws on stage, if everything went off perfectly, if there's a standing ovation, that standing ovation is for you also. And no matter where you're at, box office, marketing, development, everyone puts it together. And a good leader will make sure that everyone is aware of that. I try to make sure that everyone on staff here gets the kudos they need when we have an amazing PASIC, or in Chicago when we had a great orchestra concert. It took the entire team, and you are literally part of the team. When I talk to students about it who are really into sports, everyone wants to play in the NBA or MLB or whatever it may be, but it's not going to happen. But there's other ways: front office work, operations staff, physical therapists. There's ways that you can be involved in the thing you love. And I think that's the really great thing about arts management, is that you still feel connected to the creativity. You still are connected to that thing that you have spent years doing. You're just playing a different instrument now. You have a different chair. And that's really what it's about. And if you're okay with that, and many people are, then you have the opportunity for a really great career and great life. So those are a few tips right now. Anything else so far?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody would like to know, how do you spread tasks evenly throughout a team? What are some of the challenges when it comes to taxes when running an organization?
Yeah. Really good question. So I think you have to understand what your management style is for that. So every manager does things a little bit differently in how they work with a team. Now this time is definitely putting a little bit of strain on that, because I am someone who really wants everyone in the office. I'm someone who really wants there to be collaboration amongst everybody. I want people to have that buy-in. And I think that buy-in is really important, because we are spending hours and hours and hours at the office and with our colleagues. And let's be honest, working for a nonprofit, it's bad pay, but it's not, you're not going to be rich. So at a minimum, you have to believe in the product, and you also have to really feel that you have value. So I personally want everyone to have some sort of say in as much as it as possible. Now, in the end, it's going to be my job to kind of look through everything that was said and make a final call on something. And then if you can do it with that buy-in, then everyone is going to be much more invested in working towards that end goal, right? And so that's how I do it. Make sure that your communication is great. Even if people don't have that buy-in, you never want a staff member to know nothing about what's going on, right? I think that's really important. I think there are some organizations that are so large that, some people find out about a program when the rest of the world finds out a program, not even within the organization. I don't think that's good. So we definitely split things up by, obviously, department. We have a membership department. We have a marketing and programs department. Some of those departments are one person. So I kind of make up a second for each one of those. But we try to cross it as much as we can. Obviously, there's going to be a tie between marketing and programs here at PAS. There's a tie between membership and programs at PAS. Am I missing any of the other main things? So we try to definitely have a lot of group conversation. We all get on the same page, and then it's okay. you still oversee the thing that is membership related. You still see that's major marketing related. You see the thing that's programmatic related. And then we all come together and make sure it's all tied in correctly. So I hope that answers that kind of question. But that's how I do it. Obviously, the larger the organization, it's going to be more teams, and then maybe there's one team, a president or vice president of that maybe division, and everyone meets with other vice presidents. But it really comes from I think the leadership on how you have your team, and then if you can really bring in your team. I think the other part is you have to have a team that everyone is on the same page. Like I said, I use that word buy-in. You have to have it. Everyone has to be on the same page. Otherwise, nothing's going to get done. I think at PAS, we do have that. We're all on the same page in terms of what we want to do, whether it's board, whether it's other leadership, whether it's staff. We're all on the same page. We know what we want to accomplish, and then we all have our parts to do, and then we come back around, we share those, and then we keep moving on from there. I hope I answered that question. If not, like I said, follow up with me, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about it. All right. Another question I get from a lot of people is talking about their resume, specifically when it talks about arts management. So I would say if you have a resume right now and you're like, okay, I'm applying for jobs, but I'm not getting any bites, I would say that there might be something wrong with your resume. So let someone tear it apart. Don't get offended by it. I've seen some really, really bad resumes, okay? I'm going to tell you a few of my pet peeves on a resume. These are my personal pet peeves. It doesn't mean that you have to do them or not do them. If you're ever going to apply to a job where I'm the executive director, you may want to apply them. But other than that, these are strictly things, and they're things that you can at least think about. One, take your GPA off your resume, all right? There's no reason for it. Unless you have a 4.0, and I don't even know about college GPAs anymore. I don't know if there's 4s or 5s or weighted, whatever. But if you have anything other than that, you're telling me that you didn't get all A's. So I don't really care. I just wanted to know if you have a degree. All right? Did you finish your degree? Yes? Put your degree on there. Next, take off the year. All right? Take off the year, because it doesn't matter whether you have the degree for 1 year or 20 years. If you have a degree, you have a degree. All right? You don't want anyone to have any ageism, whether too young or too old. There's no reason for it. So if I have a Bachelor of Music, a Bachelor of Arts, a Master's, put it on there. Put on what degree you have, where you got it from. They don't need to know it. I don't want to know it. I don't want, so just do that. Try and update your cover letter for every job you're applying for. I can tell when it's the same cover letter and you just put a different job in there, right? It's very easy to say, all right, replace all blank theater with blank orchestra. Right? I can tell. So try to personalize even a little bit. We know that you're going to use the same letter, but at least at the end or at the beginning, make some reference to the job, to the organization, to something to show that you actually changed it. I know it takes a little bit of a time, but we are talking about your career. We're talking about the thing that's going to give you benefits and money. So spend a little bit of time updating before you just send it away via email, okay? That is really, really important. Also, find out who the letter should be addressed to. It doesn't take long, right? To whom it may concern, dear search committee, find someone. There's always someone who is overseeing it. Maybe it's an executive director, maybe it's an HR director. Find out. If you're unsure whether it's a miss, a Mrs., a Mr., whatever it may be, there are ways to go about that as well. You can simply send an email to someone. Do you know who's overseeing this search? Let them get it by. When you see the signature line, you'll be able to know how to address something. You want to be respectful. You want to learn. There's a lot more than just, he and she now. So you really want to see have you done your research? That it doesn't take a lot of time, but if you're serious about this, do the thing that's going to set you apart. we will see that. When a letter comes in that's addressed to Mr. Simonds, not Joshua, in a letter sense, right? You don't know me yet. Once you know me, it can be hey, or hey you, or Joshua. But in that letter, be respectful to the person until they say, no, please call me something else, right? I think that's really important. And there are ways to go about in doing that. All right. The resume. You don't have to have 4 pages worth of stuff, okay? Your resume is there to get you the interview, right? You want to leave them I want to know a little bit more about this person, all right? When I applied for the PAS job, they wanted me to send a resume along. I think it was a page and a half. It might have been almost at the bottom of 2 pages, and that was nearly 20 years of experience. I think that included my references as well, okay? It does not need to be long. Also, if you're applying for an arts management job, I don't need to know that you were a barista. Now, unless that barista job and you're applying for a job at, let's say, the ticketing counter or something dealing with customer relations, and you can tie that stuff back to a job that you're applying for, that's great. But if it makes no sense at all, it doesn't need to go on there, okay, a previous job. But if you can somehow do it, if you do have a job in the food service or a different type of arts management job, and you can say, hey, the job that I'm applying for, and these are the we call them transferable skills that you've taken, great. Put it on there. If not, leave it off. If all you have is an internship, that's fine, because most likely then the job you're applying for, they're really not looking for someone who has 3 to 5 years of experience doing something else if it's an entry-level job, right? So don't think you have to kind of fluff it up. They're looking for a specific person. And that's probably going to be someone who they understand just out of college, maybe has an internship, maybe has had a part-time job, whatever it may be, and just really talk about those things as well. And then show that you know how to write. And then once you get that call, then you can really start to talk about who you are and what you've done.
So we have 2 questions actually that kind of go with each other. Earlier, somebody asked, what does your job entail?
Okay.
And then the second question was, could you talk about the Rhythm Discovery Center? How does the responsibility of also managing a museum create opportunities and challenges outside of PAS?
Okay.
I feel like they go together.
They do kind of go together. All right. What's my role? I'm going to finish one thing and I'm going to come back to that one. So will you read that again for me in a second? All right. Because I really believe in this interview thing, because I think some other people are talking about how do we stand out. So after that, you get the job interview. That could be phone or Skype or in-person interview, okay? That's your goal, is to get in front of them at some point, right? And the reason that they've said we want to talk to you is because they're intrigued by something. So here are my quick tips for after you get that, right? Think of it as a conversation, not a job interview. All the interviews I have that either I am taking, and don't worry to the board, I'm not taking any interviews right now, nor do I have any plans. But when I'm also talking to people, I always say, hey, let's just have a conversation. I want to see how you just chat. Because what ends up happening is just very like, answer this question. That's not my leadership. That's not how I conduct business here. I want to be able to have conversations with my staff members. I want them to be able to have conversations with board members and donors and audience members, right? So don't have the one-word answers, It's okay to say, I don't know about something. Because sometimes people say, they try to trick you with weird questions like, tell me something about, have you seen this program we've done? What do you, think of it? Those are kind of gotcha things. And you can say, I really don't know enough about your program, but, after I had the job for 30 or 60 days, I would love to kind of talk to you about that, right? There are ways to go about that. When you're having the conversation, don't use an opportunity to critique them, right? have a conversation. Don't say things like, well, if I was doing this, it would be this way. And you might be back on this computer right now saying, but no one would do that. Yeah, people would do that. They would actually tell you the things that they think they could do better in the job that you're doing already. So do not do that. I've actually had that experience where someone told me the things I should be doing. Needless to say, they didn't get the job. Be prepared. Dress like you want the job. Just be respectful, all right? Another thing is they're going to ask you two things. One, they're going to ask you at the end, do you have any questions for us? Have questions ready, okay? Have questions ready. There is something that you want to have, and have those. Don't say, I get this too. Let me think. No. Have your question ready, right? 2 to 3 things that you can ask them. It shows that you did your research, that you prepared, that you actually want the job. Also, the first question they might ask you might be the hardest question. And I'm going to plead for everyone on there. If there's one thing that you take away from this, it's perfecting this question, and that is, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Can you answer that question? Can you answer it thoroughly, in order, without sounding jumbled? I can tell you stories about my apartment having notes written all over our walls on phone interviews, even on Skype interviews. I would have notes everywhere with my stories of, I'm going to start here and go 1, 2, 3, like that, and would practice it because it has to also sound like you're not just reading, right? But I would have my big notes up there. I want to start from here and I want to get to here. I want them to know about that. That's such a hard question to answer if you're not prepared for it. Tell me about yourself. Because you start going, well, I started playing this and then I was in college, but then I had this job, and you're jumping all over the place, and then it just sounds a mess. So practice that, right? Write it out, type it out. Really get to know that that is really important, and I think that it's a question that you'll get asked every single place because it's the way to kind of break a little bit of the tension, just to see how someone talks. So that's very important. I think we have about 5 minutes or so I want to get to those 2 questions. What do I do at PAS and then Rhythm Discovery Center? Okay, at the Percussive Art Society, as executive director, I essentially oversee all the day-to-day running of the organization, as well as working with the board of directors on the future of PAS, essentially to make sure that PAS is around for 60 more years. We're coming up on our 60th anniversary in 2021. So I have trusted employees who oversee departments, who oversee kind of programs, marketing, membership, finance, technology, and Rhythm Discovery Center. And I work specifically with each one of them on quarterly and yearly goals that then pertain to the long-range plan of PAS, which I work with the board of directors on. So it's kind of like I work with the board of directors to kind of oversee, okay, what's our 1 to 3 year plan? And then from that, we break it down and say, okay, I'm going to work with the board to make sure that that for this year, we are completing these goals, right? We have goals for PASIC. We have goals for Rhythm Discovery Center. We have goals for our chapters, for our committees. We have goals for programs, new programs that we're putting on. And then also we have goals for, let's say, definitely for things that are a year and 2 out. So on a daily basis, I am really making sure that we are sticking. I'm really kind of trying to say 3, 6, 12 months ahead. What am I doing right now is much more crisis management, like my colleagues all around, because the world is being thrown into this flux and we don't really know what is happening. So I'm definitely working more day to day, but also still thinking to ourselves, all right, when we do come out of this, and by the way, everyone on this call, we will come out of this. We don't know if it's going to be another 60 days or 90 days or 120 days or 6 months, but we are going to come out of it at some point. And my job is to make sure that when we do, there is still a Percussive Art Society. And I'm telling each one of you, there will be a Percussive Art Society. We are working nonstop to make sure that we are here, that we are set up. So we are constantly having to think and project out and run scenarios and do budgets And I didn't even get to talk about budgets with you, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I really kind of oversee things on a daily basis, and then I really work with the board of directors. Really, that's my main job, is working with the board of directors, and then making sure that the staff is supported on their goals and their tasks. The last part was about Rhythm Discovery Center. Amber.
Yes. Could you talk about the Rhythm Discovery Center and how the responsibility of also managing a museum creates opportunities and challenges outside of PAS?
Okay, so Rhythm Discovery Center, for those people who don't know, is the Percussive Art Society's interactive museum. And it's definitely rare that we have this international organization, service organization, but then we also run a museum, which is kind of our face of Indianapolis. And I think that the main part there is that what it really helps us do is create an identity locally in Indianapolis. And so it really allows us to kind of connect to the community, whereas our colleagues, Drum Corps International and WGI and Dayton and Music for All here, right? Those are national organizations who live and work and have some of their big events in that city, but they aren't necessarily for the city per se. Like, people go to them. The museum is really our face. People know Rhythm Discovery Center as a museum, independent museum, who know nothing about Percussive Art Society. Although Rhythm Discovery Center is just a program of ours. So there's much more opportunity in terms of fundraising, in terms of marketing. Because we have this building, we have these programs, education type of programs that we're able to do with it, all about percussion. So I think that, then there's also challenges, right? We just don't have an office. If it was just an office building, we'd have a nice small office with enough desks and chairs, and our rent would be much lower. We have a 15,000 square foot museum, which is currently closed, which will be closed for the foreseeable future. And so there are definitely challenges that come with that. What do I do with staff of Rhythm Discovery Center? What do we do with, we're not making any money? These are things that everyone is dealing with right now, museums and orchestras and theaters across the country. And that's somewhere where we are having to deal with those where maybe some of our other partner service organizations aren't dealing with that because they don't own and operate a facility. So high risk, high reward. We do have this, and in good times, it's great, and in bad times, there are more challenges, but we're very fortunate to be able to showcase percussion on a daily basis when the museum is open. Any other questions there? All right. The last thing I will say before we kind of close this up is a few quick things that you can do right now there are a lot of free resources out there for you. So a few things I would do right now is, if you have electives that you can take and you're interested in this, take a marketing class, take a business class, take a finance class. Really dive into, Excel and Word. You'd be surprised how many people don't really know the nuances about that. Really, intro classes, an intro to finance, an intro to marketing class, so you can speak the language. You understand when someone talks about whatever it may be, a balance sheet, or talks about a different fundraising or an annual campaign or annual appeal, or whatever it may be. There are so many resources out there that you can do. Download MailChimp, create an account, and start to learn how to put together a newsletter. Right? There are so many free resources that you can do, that you can learn from, that you can start to teach yourself, so that you do give yourself that leg up. Your job in getting into this profession is to be versatile, right? Is to be able to say, I can do that. I can help with that. We're always looking for the person who brings something else. That's really important, because we all wear many different hats. There are some days that someone asks what I do. There are some days that I am meeting with donors, and there are other days that I am moving boxes. It's just part of the job, and every day is different and every day is exciting. But there are still those tasks that, we need someone to have, working in a database, working with, just different programs. Are you familiar with Adobe? If not, get a program and get, Google and learn how to do something basic, photo editing, basic stuff. You'd be surprised about people who don't know how to do that. So now you've set yourself apart. And so really step outside, do something. Do something that you just think, hey, I think I need to learn this because it can be helpful. And if you're thinking of that, it's going to be helpful to someone. It's going to be helpful to a potential job, to something volunteering that you can create and then bring it to someone else. There's just so many ways that you can learn. If you are a performing arts major, whether it's music, dance, theater, you have dedicated your life so far to practicing and learning an art form. I guarantee you, you can learn Excel. I guarantee you, you can learn Photoshop. If you are an expert on an instrument or dance or can memorize lines, and act or sing, you can learn basic computer programs. 100%. All right? So start to educate yourself about that, and then reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll make sure that my information is there in terms of how you can contact me at my email. You'll have to send me an email. So I guess I'll wait another 10 or 15 or 20 seconds to see if any other questions pop up.
I think the only one was earlier whether
where they can find jobs.
Jobs, and if you need a master's degree.
Oh, I didn't hear about the master. Do you need a master's degree? Yes, I was talking about that.
Jobs.
So every place, every town is going to have a place where you can find jobs. So I would say a lot of the nonprofit jobs are, check with your local arts council. There'll be one area in each town. There are different, DC has a really good one, and I don't know it right off the top of my head, but if you just search, Washington DC has a really great one that compiles a lot from that area, and there's always a lot of jobs there. But what I will also do is I'll put it in the chat. I'll put a few websites that I recommend to people for jobs that you can definitely go to. There's job banks specifically for this, but mostly they're by region or by state that people do this. In terms of master's degree, you don't have to have a master's degree in arts management. I would say that a master's degree in arts management is not going to help you in the first few years of your job. It might help you later on, right? And because that master's degree, whether that master's degree is in arts management or you get an MBA, but having that business, marketing development, business, finance background will be very helpful later on if you want to eventually get to become an executive director of a nonprofit organization. Because while your master's in clarinet performance will be really great, the last English class or business class you might have taken may have been in high school if you went to conservatory. So there's a lot that's happened since then. So I would say that if this is really a question, if you feel like getting that master's degree is going to help you really cram 2 years of a lot of information that you don't have, then I think it's the right thing to do. If you have that information already, you've worked in the field for a while, then you may not need to go and do that. And then I would say, do you need a master in arts management, or do you need a master's an MBA program? Definitely a conversation that is worth having with a few people. But you're definitely going to learn from those degree programs, but you're going to learn so much more just in the job and doing it. So the MBA, the Master's in Arts Management, is not going to hurt you at all, but it's definitely not going to become useful until much further down in your career. All right. Listen, I really appreciate everyone listening tonight. I am always happy to hear from you, to answer questions, to set up that call if you want. I'm happy to be here. I want to remind everyone to keep checking the Facebook page for some of the great artists that are going to be coming up on the Keeping the Beat. Remember, every Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. Once again, I want to thank the TNMEA. I want to thank the CMA Foundation. I want to thank UT Martin. Thank you again for watching. I'll continue to check the comments, and Good luck.